Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to our stream. Happy Valentine's Day. Today we're going to be doing a nice white build. Big thank you to NVIDIA, WD Black, and Intel for sponsoring this video. It wouldn't be possible without them. So today I'm going to be building in the Snowblind S case. That is iBUYPOWER's signature case with the integrated screen. A lot of you guys have seen it. It looks really nice. And we're going to be going with a general white theme. So let's go over the parts. For the processor, we're going to have an i5 9400F processor. It's a very value-oriented processor with great performance at its price. It's got 6 cores, the turbo's up to 4.1 gigahertz. It's going to be able to handle pretty much every game that you throw at it. And since it's an F series processor, it's also gonna you save a little bit on the cost as compared to like a 9400 because there's no integrated graphics. We have a graphics card, we don't need it. So that's gonna be going into the Asus Prime Z390 motherboard. Great board. Z390 chipset. You can't overclock this chip, but it's still gonna be usable. Best way I could put it. For storage, we have a WD Black 1TB NVMe SSD. This is going to improve your loading times vastly over a regular SSD or especially a hard drive. And with 1 TB of storage, you're going to be able to fit all of your games on there just fine. You also get to install it without any cables, so that's always nice. For the cooler, we have a iBUYPOWER 120mm liquid cooler. It's going to keep the 9400F nice and cool. It's going to make it nice and quiet compared to the tiny stock fans that usually come with processors. And we're throwing a 120mm fan on there. That's going to be in a push-pull configuration where one fan is on the radiator, one fan is behind the radiator, and the radiator just sits smack in the middle. For memory, we have XPG 3000 megahertz RAM. We have 16 gigs of that. More than enough for gaming. You're not going to run into any problems with that. We're going to be running in dual channel. And it's white. Looks nice. Now for the graphics card, we have the RTX 2060 from Gigabyte. This RTX card is great bang for the buck card. It's going to be able to push frames well above 144 Hz at 1080p on pretty much any esports game. AAA games are also going to be running at high refresh rates, high frame rates. So if you have a high refresh rate monitor, you can take advantage of that. Play games like Overwatch, League of Legends, AAA games like Tomb Raider. You can play Call of Duty on here, whatever. It's going to be able to handle it, no problem. And we went with the Gigabyte card because it's white and it matches the theme of our build. Okay. Oh, also we have some nice sleeved extension cables. These are going to hide the regular cables from our power supply in the back, which is a 600 watt 80 plus gold certified power supply, which is more than enough to handle what we're throwing in here. But yeah, it's gonna make the system look really clean. Slightly tinted pink for Valentine's Day. You know, go with the theme. So yeah, let's take a look inside the case and see what we got. So this front panel just pulls right off. If you can see here, there's these little pins right here on the side panel, and that's gonna be able to pass power and display to the case without having any extra wires. So we're going to put that off to the side. As well as the back panel, which comes off with just 2 thumb screws. Okay, so we have the inside of the case. It comes pre-installed with 2 120mm fans for intake, get some fresh air inside the case, as well as an exhaust fan that will exhaust all the hot air out and allow the fresh air to take its place. There's going to be 2 exhaust fans after we install the other one that's on the radiator. Back of the case, there's lots of room. There's also a basement and a fan filter for the fans. So cable management isn't going to be a problem with this case, and all of your wires can be hidden down here. All right, let's get started building. So first, we're going to start with the motherboard. I'm going to install the CPU right now, the i5-9400F. We're going to throw that in here. It only goes one way. There's a little arrow that is in the bottom corner that's going to align with another dot or arrow that's on the motherboard. And also there's these notches, so you can't put it in wrong. If it feels wrong, it probably is. So don't force it. Pull down the retention arm. It takes a little bit of pressure, and this plastic cap is going to pop off. Keep this in case you were to RMA your motherboard. If something were to happen, you're going to need this to protect the pins, so don't throw it away. Now for the RAM. We're going to install that in slots 2 and 4 on the motherboard, so that way you can run in dual channel. So this one also is keyed, so that only goes one way. So we're going to put that in. You're going to hear 2 clicks, and it's in. Same thing with the second stick. And it's in. All right, M.2. We have a tiny little M.2 screwdriver. We're gonna be putting our WD Black 1 terabyte SN750 NVMe SSD in here. We're just gonna stick that in one of the slots. It has to be a slot that supports PCIe. Otherwise, it won't work because this isn't a SATA M.2. And it's a good thing that it's not a SATA M.2 because, excuse me one second. All right, while I grab a screw. It's a good thing that it's not a SATA M.2 because those just don't run as fast. You're gonna have longer loading times as compared to something like the WD Black. So we're gonna screw that in. Make sure that there's a standoff in place if you're doing this yourself. You do not want your M.2 drive to be at an angle. It's gonna be parallel with the motherboard. All right, motherboard is set up. We're gonna install the cooler later. So let's get the IO shield and install that into the case. This is always a pain, but you'll eventually get it in. Like that. All right, so since this case has standoffs with a peg in the middle, you can actually rest the motherboard and install it standing up. It's gonna hold the motherboard up, and you won't have any problems with it falling out, hopefully, if you do it right. So let's get that in there right now. Line up the holes in the back. Line up the holes on the board, and it's in. Now we just gotta screw it in. So, I have everybody's favorite vibrating tool, the electric screwdriver. And this is gonna make things very easy. Look at that. And if you don't have a electric screwdriver, you can use the regular old manual labor method if that's what you like. But this is a whole lot easier because, you know, who likes doing all the work? All right, one more screw. And piece of cake, that is in all the way. All right, let us start installing some cables. So we have the USB 3.0, which I like to install first. It's the big chunky boy. Big blue cable, it has a notch. Just plug that in to the header on the motherboard. There's usually one right under the 24 pin. If not, there's usually one on the bottom of the motherboard. You'll find it. It stands out. Other front panel headers, we will have HD audio. That's usually in the bottom left-hand side of the motherboard. It can only go in one way. Plug that in, easy. And everybody's favorite, the power LED, power button, reset button, all that good stuff. iBUYPOWER made it so easy with one universal header. So it's just like plugging in any other thing. You don't have to do little pins and prick yourself and get all mad and quit. No, just plug it in. It goes usually in the bottom right, and it's good. So we have two fans, our two intake fans. We're gonna be plugging them into these specific headers over here on the motherboard, because these are chassis fan headers. They're optimized for the chassis fan. We don't want to plug it into the CPU or the pump header that are on this motherboard, because it's better if we use the actual CPU fans for the CPU header and the pump fan for the pump header. So use chassis fan headers for that. Okay, so now we can install the CPU extension cable. We're gonna want to install this right now, because if we install the cooler right now before we get this cable in, we're not gonna be able to get to that header. So that's top left of the motherboard. Clicks, it's in, super easy. All right, now we can either install the power supply or install the cooler. I'm gonna go with the cooler. So in the back, I have the back plate already installed for the cooler. It's attached with double-sided sticky pads. That way it won't move around or fall off when I'm installing the actual cooler. So I'm going to try this once standing up. If I can't get it standing up, then I'm going to install it sitting down or with the case laying down. And you guys can imagine what I'm doing. So, oh, we didn't install the fan. It's okay, it's fine. Fan just goes on with 4 long screws. You got those right here. Grab your trusty spinning tool. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There we go. And now we can install the, oh. All right, I've made a rookie mistake. So let's see if we can catch this. If you look at this radiator, you see the side that I have the cable coming out of. It would be sticking towards the outside of the case. We don't want that. I messed up. You're gonna want the cable coming out of either the top left or bottom left, depending on where the cable can cleanly come out, because you're gonna wanna hide it. You don't want cables showing inside of your build where they're not supposed to be showing. So let's quickly redo that. It's all right. You're gonna make mistakes building PCs. Most of them aren't gonna damage your parts. It's really easy to fix. So don't worry about getting everything perfect the first time. Everything will work out in the end. You're gonna have a nice rig to play your games on. That's all that matters. You know, the end result. Although I must say, building it is so much fun. So a little about me while we get this all installed. I, at iBUYPOWER, have worked in assembly for over 2 years, and I probably built a few thousand computers. So I know what is going to be a problem and what isn't going to be a problem. So one thing that we need to do before we install this cooler, thermal paste, just like a pea-sized amount, that's fine. And let's see if we can get this done before or without putting the case down on its side. All right. Can't even get this in right now. Isn't that the story of every man's life? All right. So let's see. Let's get that one screwed in. That's one. Let's go for number two. That's two. Number three. We're gonna do this in like an X pattern. That's in, and this last one we can do with the electric screwdriver. That is 4. And we'll tighten the first one all the way now. And it is now mounted. That's not going anywhere. We can now install the radiator. So for the radiator installation, what I like to do is take off the 2 back screws first, while leaving 2 screws still installed. And we're gonna grab our long radiator screws. So let's just get one of them, poke it through, find the hole, get this in, line it up, and you just screw in. Don't over screw it because you will break the fan in the back. Know when to stop. So get the second screw, line that up, screw it in. Now you could leave it this way, or you can go a little bit further, take out the other 2 fan screws that were left in there, and replace those with 2 radiator screws. So that way you have 4 points of equal pressure, and you can actually see the screws going through each side. Aesthetics. All right, that's installed. iBUYPOWER logo is facing the right way. Fan cable is now coming out of the right side, and we're gonna plug that in right now. So pump header is gonna go, our pump fan is gonna go into the pump header. That's just gonna be hidden away right here. It's designed to be running at maximum RPM, so it'll distribute the water faster and keep your processor cooler because it's moving that water around a lot faster. For the CPU fans, we have 2 left, but only 1 header. So I'm gonna use a splitter, just 1 into each. And then that is gonna be plugged into the CPU header. And that will adjust speed depending on how hot the CPU is. So the hotter it gets, it'll make those fans spin a lot faster. That way you could cool it down faster. All right, so let's get to the power supply now. We are actually very close to being done. So power supply goes into the back, and you will see it right here. And that is being held in with 4 of these hexagonal shaped screws. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna throw that in there. Just screw it in. Yes. Building a PC is 50% wiring and 50% just good old screwing. Get that in there. Find the hole and boom. Done. Power supply is installed. Now it's just a matter of making sure all of these wires go where they need to go. So in the back, we can now see what wires we need to use. So CPU, we need to use that. 24 pin, we're gonna need to use that. We're gonna need 1 8-pin cable for the graphics card, and 1 Molex cable to power the front panel and all the LEDs that are inside of it, along with the screen. So those 4 we're gonna use. These ones are going to be unused. So let's get this all wired up. We have a Molex here. This is everybody's worst nightmare, not being able to get this Molex in, but I'm a pro. Painless. All right, let's attach this extension to the 24 pin. It goes in easy. And while we're doing that, let's plug in the CPU to the extension. It's good. All right, back to the front. While we're in the front, we can run this cable through, plug it in. That is good. And we're gonna run that GPU 6+2 pin cable through the front as well. Now we don't need to pull it all the way out because we have this extension. So we're just going to plug it in and shove that right back in there, where we can now install the powerhouse that is the RTX 2060. So we're gonna unscrew the cable, the screws where this is gonna slot in, and we're gonna plug that in here. There we go, that's installed. Now you're gonna be able to run all the games, because without it, well, our processor doesn't have any graphics. But with it, now you're gonna be able to run all of your games at varying frame rates, varying resolutions. I mean, you could definitely run games like Counter-Strike, Overwatch, League of Legends, all of those at 1080p, even 1440p, 144 Hz, depending on the settings. This thing can definitely do 1080p 60 on pretty much every single game that's out there. You don't have to worry about that. Plug that in, and technically the system's built, but I'm not satisfied because look at that. We don't want that. We want to clean this up. Nobody likes a computer that is not nice and organized. So, for that, we have our handful of zip ties. We're gonna go crazy with the zip ties here. So, we are basically going to run, we're gonna unplug this really quick actually, because it's gonna get in the way. Don't worry, it'll be plugged back in. But we're gonna grab all these cables, make sure we're not missing any, and we're gonna zip tie them. And we're just gonna do that down the line, make it look nice and clean. It's gonna look really great. This case has tie down points for zip ties. Okay, next one. That's another zip tie. We have one more zip tie going down this line. That's gonna hold everything together. There we go. Now, I said that we were gonna come back to this. We are. We're gonna plug this back in. All right, 24 pin is plugged back in. And we are going to zip tie it down to this side. So that way it doesn't bulge out over these cables. So let's go to this mounting spot. Shove the zip tie down through there. Pull it tight. All right. Let's get this one down over here. Little tip, and the tips of your zip ties. Makes them a lot easier to grab when you put them through the holes. All right, pull this one tight. Look at how nice that looks already. All right, all these extra wires, you remember those? We're just gonna bundle them. Just gonna get them nice and organized. Fold them over. And we're gonna zip tie those together. That way, they don't try and pop out. And you know that they're all neatly organized. I mean, I know nobody sees the back of the case, but it's like hiding all of the trash underneath your bed. You don't want it to be messy. You want it to be nice and organized. You know it's there, and it'll bug you knowing that it's there. Let's clip all those. Let's get this bunch. Just shove that underneath the basement. And let's use one more zip tie for these cables right here. And that is how you can cable manage your system in less than 5 minutes. All right, that's nice and cable managed. I want to make sure that's not popping out. There we go. Now let's lay it down and install the back panel. For that, it's just going to be super easy. Find which side has the screws, line it up with the slots. It's in. Now use your thumbs to tighten this, because if you use a screwdriver and try and take it apart later, you're gonna hate yourself because it's gonna be way too tight. All right. And that is what it looks like finished. You can tidy up some of the cabling here, but that is a finished snow blind. So let's see it powered on. We're gonna plug the HDMI cable that comes included in. We are going to attach the front panel, or the side panel, with the monitor. And we're gonna plug it in to power. Flip the switch on the power supply, give it a second, and let's see if it powers on. There it goes. It's working. And with any luck, you'll actually be able to see the BIOS pop up right here. Give it a second. And there we go. American Megatrends. You can kind of see it. Let's see if I could angle that so that way you can kind of see it right there. It's a really black screen, so you won't be able to see much without the actual white. You'll be able to see some of the white letters. Those show a lot better on this screen. But you can put all kinds of stuff like hardware info. You can use it as a second desktop if you want to. Make sure that you use a high contrast background on it. That shows a lot better, anything with white, so that way you could see the internal components. But if you actually want to see the internal components, you can pull this off and see that right there. So that is a completed Snowblind S build in what looks like under 30 minutes. So I'm really glad that you guys are watching. Thank you to WD Black, NVIDIA, and Intel for sponsoring this build, and I'll see you guys all next time.